So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, for joining us in BioAsia 2022. We have with us, a man who really needs no introduction, the co-founder of Microsoft, the co-chair of Bill and Melinda Gates, and as I would like to say it, the man who saw tomorrow. In fact, the man who predicted the next pandemic back in 2015, Bill Gates. Bill, thank you for doing this. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thank you. We wish to have had you in person in Hyderabad, but unfortunately, with the way the world is. But thank you for doing this, Bill.
Well, congratulations on the conference, and it's particularly timely this year. I look forward to getting back to Hyderabad as soon as things are opened up.
Thank you, Bill. Let me just dive right into our chat. The first thing, Bill, it's been 2 years since the pandemic has hit us, and it has brought before all the medical inadequacies across the world, in every government sector, in every hospital, every healthcare system, and the way we have delivered services to our people. What do you think has been the biggest learning from this pandemic for all of us, for humanity at large, and also 2 years down the line? Do you suppose we could have done things differently? We could have done things better?
Well, there's so much that we've learned during this pandemic, and the speed at which we responded was not as fast as would have been ideal. Getting diagnostic capacity up and being able to quarantine people when the level of infection was still very low, only a few countries did that, countries like Australia. But on the other hand, there's some miraculous things that happen. The development of the vaccines is really incredible, getting those vaccines out, and the speed of response, even the basic things like, okay, let's get the oxygen capacity built up, and that is going to continue to be an asset even after the pandemic. India, really there's two things that stand out. One is creating great vaccines with global partners, including the Gates Foundation, and getting those vaccines out. India's vaccine coverage is very impressive. It's even better than most rich countries, which, that's quite phenomenal. And so thank goodness that the design of the vaccines, the manufacturing of the vaccines, and the distribution, all of that was handled well. That ended up saving a massive number of lives. Now in the future, we'd like to make vaccines even faster and have even better vaccines that could avoid breakthrough cases and have long duration. And so we have a research agenda with our partners in India, both not just for COVID vaccines, but also to take some of these new platforms, including mRNA, and build up the capacity in India and use those to have that as a standby for future pandemics, but also finally get vaccines for some of the most difficult diseases, HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria, using these new platforms. And so even though the pandemic's a tragedy, some of the innovation, including, Serum, Bharat, BioAsia, many Indian partners of ours, they really stepped up and did a fantastic job. And now they have new capacities that we can use for two purposes: more equitable health with new tools, and to make sure that when the next pandemic comes, that we are able to come in not just with vaccines, although I'd put that at the top of the list, but also diagnostics and therapeutics very, very rapidly. And so it's a glass half full, but a lot of things were done well, and we've learned how we can do better.
Absolutely. In fact, like you said, glass half full, as you put it, times of cautious optimism. But let me just quickly ask you another question. Much has been talked about, much has been debated about your 2015 TED Talk, where you were able to possibly, based on some data, I presume, predict the next pandemic and how the world was not prepared. Many of us, including myself, had not taken it seriously. But now, as somebody who sits on a lot of trends, who looks at a lot of data, again, cautious optimism. I hope it doesn't happen, but nevertheless, what do you think is the next big crisis? And how do we prepare better? How do we gear ourselves, as industry, as governments, as stakeholders? How do we prepare together as humanity, in a much better fashion, you think?
Well, of course, the last gigantic pandemic was almost 100 years ago, but it won't be that long until the next one strikes. And it won't necessarily, be a coronavirus or even to flu. It is likely to be a respiratory virus because that, with all the human travel we have now, that's the one that can spread in such a rapid way. I'm actually doing a book that'll come out in the spring to go through this in depth because I am actually quite excited that if we take the lessons from this pandemic and we fund both academia and the private sector in the right way, that we can build up far, far better diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines. Sadly, when I gave the warning in 2015, and I wasn't the only one, but by and large, not a lot was done. There were a few things. The group called CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness, did do some good work and was able to fund a number of vaccine efforts because they had built up that capacity. We do need to get the world to spend more on R&D. Infectious disease in some of the rich countries is sometimes ignored because the disease burden for infectious disease, is quite modest compared to, say, cancer or heart disease or neurological. And yet this pandemic is a reminder we have to go back and do a better job on those. Also, to improve health equity. India's in a transition where you have some of those, the diseases of rich countries are becoming a challenge, and still some agenda on the world of infectious diseases. And so the opportunities for the innovators that are, all over in India and, seeing this as an opportunity to improve all of our health, it's very exciting. I think biological innovation will be accelerated, and there's categories, including antiviral drugs and antibodies, where we can get the response time, the quality, the cost, all of those things to be far better, and that'll help us every year as we have many health challenges. But also, when that next pandemic comes, it won't be like this one. This pandemic, we lost millions of lives, and of course the economy, the health system was disrupted. We have a backlog in things like routine immunization, and it's tragic, the economic suffering. So, we need to be better so that whether it's lives or economies, that this does not happen again.
I hope so too, Bill. I hope it does not happen again as well. But I noted something very carefully. You said your book is coming out, so we look forward to that. Is there a title?
Yeah, I hope to. Yeah, it's my last book was about climate change, which still an unbelievable amount of work. But that was called How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, and this one will be a similar title about making sure we're ready for the next pandemic.
Talking about the next pandemic, one of the things we also realize, being the pharma capital and, being a very important hub for medicine in the world, from Telangana and Hyderabad, antimicrobial resistance, is also, in fact, recognized as a sustainable development problem. What are your thoughts on tackling it? Because, as things change, as medicine improves, this continues to remain a huge challenge, AMR.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge number of diseases that we get this antibiotic resistance. The group that we support to do these global burden of disease information things, which I highly recommend people take a hard look at, that is the International Health Metrics and Evaluation. And what they estimate is that there's 1.3 million deaths attributable to this microbial resistance. And of course, not only is that a large number, but there's a risk that that would grow. And most of those diseases are in developing countries. We see AMR for pneumonia, we see it for typhoid, we see it in the hospital where women are delivering, which is, of course, an incredible tragedy. One particular bacteria we're worried about is Klebsiella pneumoniae, which affects newborns. We've done a lot of work where we'll take infant deaths and we'll do what's called a minimally invasive autopsy and see, okay, what is it that caused that death? We have a lot of partners in India that make sure we see, both in India and with other partners the rest of the world, where is it antibiotic resistance causing that? And so what we need to do is get better at developing antibiotics, new antibiotics. One area that the antibiotic resistance has been a huge challenge is in tuberculosis. And so the foundation works both broadly on AMR, but we're very focused on a new class of drugs that avoid the resistance that work for tuberculosis. I'd say the partners are being so innovative. You can attack these diseases either with new small molecule drugs, or in some cases with antibodies, if we can get the cost of those down to be usable throughout the world. And so a variety of techniques that are going to help us tackle that disease burden. The slogan of the foundation is that we should be able to get rid of infectious disease burden, because the inequity in health, where a child born in Africa is 20 times more likely to die before the age of 5 than in other countries, that's almost entirely this infectious disease burden. And so, we can drive that to zero. And the speed of innovation in biology actually is, I think, one of the highlights. I think people really don't realize, the incredible work that's going on there. And, it'll be nice to surprise them as we come up with these new tools.
Bill, talking about the incredible work that is happening in biology, just two quick things. One, I know you've been focusing big time on the mRNA, and you want the world at large, to look at gigantic facilities to be able to cater to the demand. That's one thing. I know that the foundation has been doing tremendous work. So where are the opportunities for, say, a province like Telangana, Hyderabad to work with the foundation? And also, more importantly, medicine is becoming more and more personalized. I also wanted to understand from you how potentially we could, look at curative therapies and how we could make them affordable, and how Telangana and Hyderabad could serve the world in tandem with Bill and Melinda Gates.
Yeah, so mRNA is sort of a surprise star of the pandemic. We had vaccines made by many different techniques. The viral vector approach was used for a number of them. Protein subunit with adjuvant was used for a number of them. Some of the Chinese manufacturers did inactivated. So thank goodness that all these technologies, like the viral vector, were developed over the last decade, and the Indian manufacturers, had incredible capacity there, including our partners there in Hyderabad, but as other parts of India as well. mRNA was not available for manufacturing outside of the US and Europe. And so the foundation has already started work with our partners to get the Indian ecosystem so that those partners have this mRNA capacity. We do think that for a number of diseases, probably future flu vaccines, probably the HIV vaccine, maybe the malaria vaccine, we do think that mRNA is important there. And so, the partners in India have always been innovative at building up huge scale and getting the cost of these things to go down. As you say, it's not just vaccines that we want to build up capacity. Today, some medical technologies like gene therapy are incredibly expensive. In fact, they're so expensive, even in the United States, there's a challenge of, okay, how do we provide them to everyone? But there's no reason that it has to be that way. And so as we've done for so many technologies, now we're saying, okay, can we use gene therapy for things like sickle cell disease? Can we use it for an HIV cure? Because with HIV today, although we have treatment drugs, today you're never cured. You have to take those the rest of your life. And with gene therapy, over the 10 to 15 year time frame, we should be able to do that. And so gene therapy, we have to get the cost down by almost a factor of 100 from what it is today, and come up with various in vivo techniques there. And so, the beauty of the Indian ecosystem is that it not only goes after innovation, it also goes after the cost issues. What's the way to redesign things and retain the miraculous capability of gene therapy and yet make it available to everyone in the world. So, it's kind of thrilling, even though that's not an overnight thing. I see it as the next 10 to 15 years. We've got the patience to engage over that time frame and come up with these incredible cures. So, I'd say the benefit to the world of that innovation is greatly underestimated. We're thrilled to have the partners in India who share that vision.
Well, my team here is telling me that we're out of time, but and also your team, I think, also has scheduled something for you. But if you are willing to stay on for 2 minutes, let's do a quick rapid fire, just one sentence or a one-line answer. Let's see how much your coffee's worked in the morning today. All right. What do you think is the next big thing in technology in health? I mean, the intersection of tech and health. What's the next big thing that Bill Gates is predicting?
Well, I think the idea of being able to get diagnosed with digital tools, even in some cases without leaving the home, and then to do remote consulting, the idea that we take all these sensors, maybe a watch that you wear, various ways of checking your health, take that data, use artificial intelligence, and help in a more preventative way, give you advice about sleep and diet. The chance to not just fix sickness, but to make people have healthy lives where they're more effective in health. It really is incredible. So the digital tools bring a lot of challenges like privacy, but I'm a believer that all of that is very solvable.
Well, any advice to the younger generation of health professionals? Just a quick advice, if you had to.
Well, I have a daughter who's studying to be a doctor. I'm always impressed in the area of health how much there's new information, and the digital tools help you stay on top of that. But it's incredible, people who understand both the economics of health and the science of health. I think there's a lot to be done there. In many countries, we not only need to come up with the new tools, but the costs have to be dealt with at the same time. And so, I said to my kids, hey, health is going to be, one of the most high growth areas and, very exciting areas, particularly at the intersection of my first career, which is, the digital tools, including AI, and now with these health understandings, even things that are unbelievably complicated, like the brain, where we're just at the beginning. As we get better tools, are able to gather the data, I'm optimistic even there we'll see incredible advances so that we can improve the quality of life for older people.
Lovely. What's the next big cure you're looking at? What's the next big thing, next big cure that you're looking at personally?
Well, I still, look at HIV cure probably as the top of the list. Although I will say that, malnutrition is still a huge problem. So if I have one wish, I'd love to get rid of malnutrition. It's really the microbiome that, we didn't understand at all 10 years ago. Changing what people eat, getting that microbiome to be adapted so we don't have any more malnutrition. That's one that I do think in the next 10 years we'll have some breakthroughs, and we can improve lives incredibly, because it's not just the deaths that we have, it's a lot of kids grow up without the full development of their brain and body. And so, we owe it to them to learn about the microbiome and get rid of all that malnutrition.
Fantastic. Bill, one last question. When will we see you in Hyderabad in flesh and blood at BioAsia?
No, I look forward to coming back. I've been doing very little travel the last couple of years, and so I'm anxious to get back and see our partners and actually congratulate them. I know the work in the last 2 years. In many areas, provisioning the oxygen, so many things, but particularly the vaccine companies, I have a lot to thank them for, because they really stepped up in the last 2 years, not just for India, but now a lot of those vaccines being exported as well, and we're super thankful to their amazing work.
Thank you so much, Bill, for doing this, and trust me when I say this, when you do come back to Hyderabad, you will see a very, very different Hyderabad. So welcome to Hyderabad, welcome to Telangana and India, whenever you can. So look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Great discussion.
Thank you. Bye.